Starting off with Jane. She was the main character in a novel, and she was also the narrator. She's an intelligent and honest girl who faced oppression, inequality, and adversity. Throughout the novel, she stayed true to her morals and principles of justice and human dignity. Her strong belief of gender and social equality challenges the Victorian era belief against women and the poor. Next was Rochester. He was a wealthy and passionate man with a dark past that adds to the suspense throughout the whole novel. He was spontaneous and spent most of his adult life wandering through Europe to avoid confronting his past traumas. Next is Aunt Reed. This is Jane's cruel aunt. She's very religious, and she's the stereotypical Victorian upper-class individual. Jane attempted to forgive her aunt, but the old woman continued to resent her because her Uncle Reed always loved Jane more. Finally, we have Adele. This is Jane's friend at Thornfield. She's kind of spoiled, and she's from France. Rochester brought her to Thornfield after her mom left her. Adele's mom was Rochester's ex-mistress, and he doesn't believe he's the father. Adele is not too bright, and she focuses a lot on fashion.
The central theme of Jane Eyre is virtue, which is basically a conformity to a standard of right. This theme of virtue is seen in multiple different ways in the story, one way being moral integrity. Jane searches for love and a sense of belonging, but in several instances in the story, her desires often conflict with her personal values, yet she always chooses her personal principles despite her temptations. An example for this is that Jane has a deep romantic love for Mr. Rochester, but at the same time, she is cautious because being with him results in her losing the strong principles she has for herself, so she refuses to become his mistress. Another sub-theme of the central theme of virtue is self-respect and reliance. Jane stays strong and continuously stands up for herself, even in tough situations. Even though Jane was still deeply in love after Mr. Rochester's betrayal, she leaves Thornfield, valuing her self-respect over love. Lastly, forgiveness is also a prevalent sub-theme of virtue. Jane shows kindness and understanding even to the people who treated her wrong. For example, Jane cares for Aunt Reed despite her cruelty during Jane's childhood.
Plot premise. I would like to preface by saying that Jane Eyre is a very character-driven novel, and most of the plot and plot twists are used to develop Jane's characterization and her personal growth. But a summary would be Jane, a young independent-minded girl, lives with her upper-class cousins and aunt before basically being disowned and sent away to Lowood, a boarding school for orphans. She learns much from her time there before going to work as a governess. The career turns out to bring many unexpected turns and challenges, provoking a sense that Jane can't get away from haunted, desolate, or mysterious places. Jane's romance with Mr. Rochester and struggles with navigating life allow for a variety of interpretations of this novel, and it's really interesting to see how Jane handles everything.
In discussion 1, we talk about the novel's spiritual references and Jane's first encounters with the supernatural when she's put in the red room by the Reeds for standing up for herself. And we analyze savior-like characters like Helen and Miss Temple who care for Jane at Lowood and see her for more than just an orphan without power status, as well as explore Jane's internal strength for traveling out of Gateshead to escape the abuse of her relatives. In discussion 2, we discuss Jane's interactions with Rochester and how the fire at Thornfield and Miss Fairfax's disapproval is strange, and how it foreshadows Mr. Rochester's dark secrets and how they may be the downfall of their relationship. As well as in discussion 3, we discuss the differences between Blanche and Jane and how Blanche values keeping up appearances while Jane does not care about meeting social expectations of others except for being true to herself, and how we analyze Jane's relationships with others and how she expects to have mutual respect and understanding no matter the difference in social class or gender hierarchy, such as her relationship with Rochester. Then in discussion 4, we analyze the literal and symbolic meaning of Jane's dreams and how it reflects her thoughts of her relationship with Mr. Rochester and how she's commonly connected and caught up in strange supernatural situations when she only desires to have a normal happy life. We also bring up different Gothic elements present, such as Mr. Rochester being a Byronic hero and Jane being a feminine heroine, as well as how different settings of the story develop Jane's character. Jane Eyre masterfully combines romance, mystery, and social critique. However, it is a bit slow at times, so I would rate it a 4 out of 5.
I think Jane Eyre is definitely a 5-star read. I love Jane. I just adore how she challenges Victorian era social norms, and especially the role that women played back then. And I love how she doesn't let the extremist views of the upper or lower class affect her decision making, and she chooses to think for herself. And the thing I love most of all is the romance with Mr. Rochester, how he's a Byronic hero, and how he resembles Mr. Darcy, because I love Pride and Prejudice. So for me, it was definitely a 5.
I rate Jane Eyre a 4 out of 5 because it was very enjoyable, but it was slow at some points in the story.
I rate this novel 4 out of 5 stars because it was the perfect combination of suspense and mystery with romance and love. It was an easy read, but it did get slow at some parts of the novel. That is why I give it a 4.